Hello, everyone, and welcome to the return of the Texas State University Reading Night. Tonight we have a special event organized by David Rich called Apples and Oranges, featuring three 10-minute plays and two short stories by various writers. Now we will have David introduce the rest of the event.
Hello, my name is David Rich. I wanted to put this together to showcase things that people in the Honors College community and the Writer Circle community have been working on. And we've got five pieces for you. We've got Green and Pillared at first, then we have Rodeo, and then we have Let's Do Lunch, Unexpected Journeys, and Complacency. And we will be doing those one after the other. As we continue reading each one of these plays, I would really encourage in the YouTube chat for you to constantly be sending your reactions to things, be asking questions, send your oohs and ahs and oh my goshes into the chat, and we would love to just hear your feedback. And we're going to have a talk back after the last show, so after Complacency happens, where we are going to uh, talk back and have a conversation about the show. Without further ado, we're going to start up the first production of the night. So this one is called Green and Pillared. It was written by me, David Rich, and it is starring Britton. Britton, if you want to pop up here.
Hello, my name is Britton Stabora. I'll be playing Green.
And we've got Chris.
Hello, I'm Christopher Graham II. I'll be playing the part of Pillared.
All right. So, let us get started. It'll be just 1 second. I'm so sorry. Green and Pillared, written by David Rich. There is a striking lack. There's a striking amount of green on the stage, and a striking lack of anything that makes sense. Possibly a kitchen sink inset into a couch, a jungle gym that doesn't work, or other nonsensical scenery. Green, fully dressed in green, emerges from the set. They are very comfortable with the set, as if this is their home. They sit in a position that could in no way be comfortable.
Pillared? Pillared? Ah, pity. They don't want to join me. Oh, looky here. The generous visitor left me some snacks. How sweet and kind and sweet. I'm overjoyed.
Green grabs a basket filled with green apples and starts collecting them into their shirt.
It's really a shame my friend won't enjoy the juiciness and bitter crunch of these delectable apples. I'd say that these apples are very juggleable, round, light, and perfectly weighted. I'm not a great juggler. They might get bruised.
Hey, stop!
Look who sprouted from his hovel.
I need my apples. Give them back.
Maybe I can juggle 3 with one hand while I eat the other.
Please.
Look how close my teeth can get to the skin of the apple, almost like an arrow hitting the top of your head.
That's a threat.
I didn't mean it as one, Pillared. You're really being sensitive.
How do you know my name?
How did you get here, Pillared?
Stop saying my name.
Oh, well then how can I refer to you?
Don't.
If you don't want to talk to me, why are you here?
Because.
Why are you here, Pillared?
Give me my apples.
Green climbs up to place the apples out of Pillard's reach.
I don't get your name. Pillard.
Not that hard.
I know, but why?
Because my parents wanted it.
So they just proclaimed, "Ye shall be pillared," and it simply happened?
Yes.
But why are you called Pillared? What brought about your parents' pillared proclamation? Were there 4 pillars lined up in a row and pillar A, B, and C were taken?
No.
Was your father called Willard and your mother needed to pee?
I don't see the point of this interrogation.
I'm just asking. It's an odd name to exist with no explanation. Seems arbitrary and contrived.
Well, why are you called Green then, huh? Sounds pretty arbitrary to me.
Green gestures to the exceedingly green landscape.
Right. Green. I get it.
Not too quick, are you?
I am if I want to be.
Well, tell me, friend, why are you here? You're clearly not comfortable here. You sit on the furniture like a dolphin in a puddle.
Well, I have to be.
A dolphin?
No, I have to be here.
Dolphins are gray and have fins. Albeit you do look gray.
I have to be here, like I said.
Right, because you fit in so well.
I've got my apples.
I've got your apples.
I mean, this is where my apples are.
In a very portable basket.
Green grabs the basket.
They can travel wherever you need them.
But here is where they match, green and green.
Do they? There's an awful lot of yellow in them.
They're green apples. That's what they're called.
So then they're mine? Thank you for the gift.
Green apples, not Green's apples.
Pillard pulls the basket from Green's hand.
The curse of syntactical possession. Green's green apples would be too much alliteration, so they must belong to you.
What?
Why are they called green when they look so yellow?
They aren't ripe.
Then why did you pick them?
To eat them.
Well, wouldn't you want to eat the fruit when it ripens?
I had to pick them if I wanted to bring them here.
How far did you travel from the apple tree to find a place where they belong?
Not far.
Far enough to fall asleep when you got here.
I was tired.
From the walking.
That's neither here nor there.
You're evading the question.
What question?
Why are you here?
Because my
Notice,
apple...
I did not say why are your apples here. You are not your apples. Why are you here?
I like it here.
A dolphin in the desert would be fond of the smallest puddle.
You've said that already.
But rephrased it. Did you know where you'd end up when you left your apple tree?
I know I'd get somewhere.
Right, and you stopped here because...
The apples matched.
The apples matched. And you'd have stopped elsewhere if they were a bit more ripe?
I don't have to listen to you.
Then don't.
I'm here because I want to be. It's safe.
From what? From ripened apples? From apple trees?
Well, if I wasn't here, then I'd have to go home.
And what's at home?
So many things. Plants that need watering, people that need caring for, food that needs preparing, walls that need painting.
And the apples.
You pull them off a tree and they're ready to eat.
Well, not until they're ripe.
No, but who needs ripe fruit?
Probably those people you care for.
Can't they pick their own apples?
Why should they? When you've clearly promised them that you would be the apple picker.
I never promised anything.
How long have you been picking apples?
Years.
And how long have you been bringing them home?
The same.
Years?
Yeah.
So, would it be presumptuous of me to think that they presumed that from your frequent apple picking, that you might be the ones to pick the apples ad infinitum?
I'm sick of presumption.
Then stop picking apples. Clearly, you've gotten worse at it.
How do you mean?
With apples so yellow, they could replace the sun.
They're edible.
Then eat them. I've heard they're great with peanut butter.
You aren't helping.
Is that my job?
You're clearly trying to.
I'm just asking questions.
You're pontificating. Pontificating leads nowhere.
Well, it led you here.
What is here?
Green.
I know. But how did I get here? How do I get back?
Oh, so we're going back now, are we?
Well, I can't stay here. I've got people to care for.
Go back the way you came. You'll find the apple tree soon enough.
Hey,
Yes?
I wanted to...
Leave, you've told me.
No, I wanted to...
What is it?
I'm sorry.
A bit of exploration never hurt anyone.
Here.
For me?
It's yours.
Why?
I wanted to thank you for dealing with me.
No need. All you've done is dealt with yourself. Go.
End of play. All right. That was Green and Pillared by me, David Rich. So next, I suppose we will introduce Rowan Hahn, and Rowan can go ahead and say the other things.
Okay, this next up piece is called Rodeo, and the reader of it is Michelle Coular.
Rodeo by Rowan Hahn. Rabbit turned her old sedan. His name was Leonard, Lenny for short, into the grass, the car bumping the four of us around it as it pittered over the pits and hills. Country music floated lazily from the radio. I couldn't place exactly what it was, but the others in the car were happily humming along to it. Entrance fees, Rabbit said, lowering the radio and slowing down her vehicle in front of a southern gentleman in a large Stetson. We all passed Rabbit bits of cash, which she collected and passed to the man. Well, all right now then, young ladies, just go ahead and pull into that lot and the show will be starting in half an hour or so. The car rumbled forward again, wandering through the loose dirt tracks made by the cars before, then parked in between two large pickup trucks that dwarfed it. We got out of the car to the warm summer afternoon, that kind of warm that gently sits against you but doesn't seep in. I stomped my feet loose into the dirt, kicking to get the blood back where it should be, while the smell of diesel fuel and horse shit crawled into my nose in an all too familiar mixture. Hey, I got something for you, Rabbit said. What is it? I asked. Rabbit plopped a cream-colored flat cap on my head. It was a bit too small, but it matched my overalls quite well. Rabbit smiled. Just found it in my car door. Don't need it, though. I think it fits you better. Oh, thanks. I reached up and adjusted the hat, fixing it quickly in the car's side mirror. The edge of the cap was frayed, and I wondered how long she had had it for. The four of us stepped out of the car and into the scrubby and dry grass. Think the others are here yet? I asked. Probably. I think our Starbucks stop may have put us behind, Skipper responded. They were stretching their legs too. Artemis took a final sip from their straw before putting the empty cup in the car. Nice hat, Artemis said. Thanks, I replied. Rabbit gave it to me. Suits you. You sure? It feels not quite right for this event, I think. I can't imagine you in a cowboy hat, Skipper said. What? I can't pull off a cowpoke look? Nope. Oh. No offense. Actually, a bit of offense, city slicker. That's suburb slicker to you, thank you very much. That's somehow worse, Skipper said. I stuck my tongue out at them. We spotted Pegasus and Dragonfly and Sapphire, the lifeguards posing for pictures next to the entrance to the stands. A few of the barn crew were there with them, Pocket and Sunny and Feather. Makes sense that the underage staff would be posing for Instagram photos, I mused. Skipper nodded in a conceding way. It is the youth's way, they said. I'm 19. Artemis is 18, I said. I said what I said. The four of us walked up to the lifeguards and barn staff and said our hellos, photobombing a few of the photos on our way. We headed up the stands, the groove steel underfoot familiar to every outdoor event I had ever been to. The dirt imprints on its surface even more so. We spotted our bosses pretty quickly. Cookie and Daffodil sat with Badger and Cinnamon and Blue, and a few others I didn't know. We walked over to them, adding a few more dirt imprints to the collection on the dull steel. Welcome to the Rodeo, Blue said. The purposeful mispronunciation we had been using all week already familiar to our ears. Blue had a loose smile on her lips and held a drink to Rabbit. Rabbit smiled at her and settled into the seat next to her, sitting closely, their hands quickly intertwining. Skipper, Artemis, and I settled into the seats behind the rest of the group, and I adjusted the cap on my head again, thumbing the brim of the hat, feeling the loose threads. I looked down and I finally got a good look at the field. It was a large dirt oval, which seemed to be the typical affair for a rodeo, surrounded by a thin white fence with only one bar across the top, so that it was easy to duck under if needed, but was just enough to stop a horse or a steer from running through. A few dusty barrels laid around here or there, and there were a few other structures I didn't recognize in the field. What's that for? I asked. Rodeo clowns, Artemis said. Rodeo clowns? They entertain the crowd, but mostly they're there to draw off a bull if anything gets too dangerous. Oh, I said. You know a lot about rodeos. Been coming since I was a kid. Don't think I've ever been to one. Not that I can remember. You should. They're fun. The group passed around a few drinks, and we talked and chatted, sharing stories of funny campers we had that week. This girl deadass said, I didn't know horses were real when she came to the barn, one of the barn staff said, snickering as she said it. She signed up for a horse program. I don't know what she was expecting. That's going on the camper quote list, Blue said, laughing along with the group, her hand loosely looped over Rabbit's shoulder. That list is already so long, and the summer isn't even over, I said. Little girls be weird sometimes, Skipper said. Little girls be weird sometimes, I echoed, nodding. The PA system cracked on, and a man with a southern drawl spoke into it. Everyone please rise for the national anthem. A few women in sparkling outfits rode out into the field, hefting a large American and Texan flag into the air. I shifted to my feet and took off my cap, not feeling particularly patriotic, but feeling a bit afraid of what the rodeo population would say to me if I didn't. Another woman on the field started to belt out the national anthem over a microphone as the women with the flag started to do the tricks on the horses. How do they balance? I whispered to Skipper. Hella core muscles? That's kind of hot. A woman to the side of us shot us a look, so I put my hand back to my heart and watched in silence. Eventually, the crowd settled down and the games began. Barrel racing, men leaping to rope steers to the ground, and young children desperately hanging onto sheep stampeding across the field. Is that safe? I whispered to Skipper. They're wearing helmets, they replied back. What about the parts of them that aren't their heads? They can walk it off. The sun began to descend in the sky, washing the world in gold, then orange, then finally sinking under the horizon as bright LEDs flicked on, washing the field in white light. The rodeo came to a close, and the group started becoming especially chatty. Rabbit and Blue excitedly took off, and the rest of our group started moving in the same way. Where are we going? I asked. The dance, Artemis replied. A small dance floor was set up behind the stands, with the live bands starting to strum and play country. Most of the younger staff started to swarm the dance floor, excitedly grabbing onto one another and two-stepping with a swing in their step. Skipper and Artemis and I took to the sidelines, watching the men in Stetsons dancing with the women with fringed shirts and jean shorts. Blue excitedly pulled Rabbit onto the dance floor, the two dancing with an easy and fervent energy as they two-stepped with grace and vigor. We watched for a while, Artemis bopping their head to the beat and Skipper leaning against the railing. Are either of you going to dance? I asked. I don't think my knees are up for it today, Skipper said. They hadn't needed to bring their cane, but I guess dancing was still not in the cards. Are you going to dance? Artemis asked me. Well, I don't know how to, I replied. It's easy, they said. Let me show you. I followed them to the dance floor, buffered on all sides by people stepping to and fro. They put their hand on my waist, and I put mine on their shoulder, and we clasped our other two hands together and held them out. Okay. It's 2 steps forward, step, step, and 1 step back, stumble, step. Sorry, I said. It's okay, I said. 2 steps forward, step, step, 1 step back, step. There you go. Now stop being so robotic. Sorry. It's okay. Just get into the flow. Go with the rhythm. Step, 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 step. Is this it? Well, I can twirl you too. They proceeded to do so. Oh, okay. Step, 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 twirl. Am I any better? A little. Just loosen up. Sorry. It's okay. Is this it? Yeah. Oh, I thought it was more complicated. Stumble step. Sorry. Just focus on moving. Yeah. Okay. We danced a while longer, stepping between fervent couples who swung around the dance floor. Then the song ended and I tiredly made it back to the side. Have fun? Skipper asked. Yes, but I don't think dancing is for me, I replied. I had fun, Artemis said. Rabbit was back at the sidelines too, and Blue was talking to some of the barn staff, looking the other way. A mid-20s man, dressed in what I assumed was his finest Western shirt of a vibrant scarlet color, sauntered up to Rabbit. I could smell the drench of Axe cologne dripping off of him from where I stood. He then pointed himself at Rabbit and did something I can only describe as wiggling. Hey there, miss, care for a dance? He said. Okay. I heard her muster out as she was being dragged away. They started to dance, the man turning his staunter into a style of dance while Rabbit politely went along with the jittering steps. Blue looked behind her, spotted Rabbit and the man, and the look on her face soured into rage. She stomped over, her cowboy boots thudding into the wood, and she placed her hand on Rabbit with an iron grip and pulled. The sidelines, filled with half the camp staff, started to laugh and cheer as Blue twirled Rabbit back into her arms and back swinging onto the fray. Rabbit laughed, open-mouthed and smiling as they started to dance again. The man looked in front of him, a bit startled, gave a dejected shrug, and wandered away back into the crowd of fringe and checker print. I love the way they dance together, I said. What do you mean? Skipper asked. They just look like they're having fun. Yeah, they do. The night air was growing cooler, prickling against my skin. I rubbed my hands against the goosebumps on my arms and watched Rabbit and Blue dance. Nobody's been asking me to dance, I said. Do you want people to? Skipper asked. No, I said, thumbing at the cream-colored flat cap. Just curious why no one is. Is it because I don't look country, or because I look gay? Probably both, Skipper said, laughing. I laughed with them. Yeah, you're probably right. I heard a commotion behind me, cheering and words of encouragement from voices that I knew. I think Turtle is about to do the mechanical bull, Artemis said. I smiled. Now this I gotta see. The three of us turned our backs on the dance floor, leaving Rabbit and Blue behind, towards the gathering crowds of girls, whooping and cheering around the mechanical bull.
Thank you very much, Ishel. Up next is Jamie Pitts.
Hi there, I'm Jamie Pitts. I wrote a 10-minute play called Let's Do Lunch. Our actors are going to be Elena Martinez.
Hi, I'm Elena. I'll be reading B.
And Ansley Hammond.
Hey, I'm Ansley. I'm going to be playing Ashley.
Thank you very much. I hope you guys enjoy. Let's Do Lunch, written by Jamie Pitts. Lights up on a small, cheap, empty cafe. B, a young woman with dyed hair and grunge clothing, is the only guest. She sits expectantly at a small table with 2 glasses of iced tea. Enter Ashley, a fashionable woman in full makeup, around the same age as B. She looks around the place with disdain before spotting B. She breaks into a big smile and walks toward her.
Hey, girl.
Hey, you're here.
B stands up as Ashley approaches her. The two exchange a hesitant, clunky hug. They take their seats. Ashley's chair wobbles.
Whoa. Uh-oh. I'll, when the server comes around, I'll ask for, like,
Yeah, no worries.
toaster or something. God, there's just so much catching up to do, huh? How have you been?
Good, there's just... Oh, I've been good. Yeah, college life has been so crazy, you know?
Yeah, I saw your Instagram story last week. The beach party thing.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, it looked like a wild time.
Yeah, it was, like, pretty crazy.
I actually replied. Did you not see?
Oh, no, I guess I missed it.
I DM'd you a couple times.
Oh?
I actually texted you the other day, too.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just, like I said, college life has been so crazy.
For sure. Dude, the food here is so good. You're gonna love it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I love this place. I can't believe we never came here in high school. It's got such a chill atmosphere.
Ashley peels the menu off the sticky table.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Ashley's chair wobbles.
Where is our server anyway?
I'm in photography now.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, you go.
But no, I've been talking your ear off.
No, it wasn't important.
Okay. I was just, yeah, I changed majors. I'm in photography now.
Oh, neat. Hey, are you still with
Yeah,
Andrew?
Sorry, what?
Nothing, never mind.
No, what did you say?
Are you still with, Andrew? I'm, like, curious. What?
God, fuck no. I'm not with Andrew. We made it like, what, 3 months after high school? I dumped his ass. He was such a tool.
He was not a tool.
He was. Trust me. Like, dude, I know you were into him for a while,
Years.
but trust me, you dodged a bullet.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for sure.
So I guess I should be like thanking you, huh? Is that what you're saying?
I didn't say.
Ashley's chair wobbles.
Where the fuck is our server?
I don't know. Busy?
With what? There's no one here.
I don't know. Server life is just so crazy, you know?
What's that supposed to mean?
Come on. You've been so busy for the last 2 years that you couldn't even shoot me a text now or then?
You're really gonna do this?
Yeah. You want to get petty? Let's get fucking petty.
Why would I want to text you after what you did at my fucking party?
That was high school.
All through high school, I tried to like get you out of your shell and introduce you to guys, and you were never interested. Never. And then suddenly you just happened to be into the guy I've been crushing on since sophomore year.
What did that matter to you? You were hooking up with half the fucking school anyway.
What's wrong with that?
He was one guy. You could have had anyone you wanted, and I finally found somebody that I actually liked. And you decided he was off limits just because you'd been practically stalking him since you guys met.
I was not stalking him.
Well, that's not what he told me.
Ashley's chair wobbles. Fed up, she stands up and knocks it to the ground.
Are you fucking crazy? You're gonna get us thrown out of here.
By who? There's no service here. The waiters are probably screwing in the kitchen right now while I'm sitting here waiting in this grimy ass restaurant with this broken furniture across from a clingy bitch I thought I ditched after high school.
Then why
Stands
the
up.
fuck? Then why the fuck did you ask me to go to lunch?
Bee knocks over her iced tea. It spills all over the table and onto Ashley's clothes. Silence as they process what just happened.
You want to know why I asked? I asked because when I ran into you Tuesday, you just looked so sad. You looked so miserable. It radiates from you. And I thought the very least I could do for you was sit through like 45 minutes of small talk at this crappy restaurant of your choice. I was doing you a favor.
Right. Doing your fucking good deed for the week. So you've just faking it so you can convince yourself you're a good person and not the same shallow bitch you were in high school?
Oh, and you're such a saint, right? If I'm such a bitch, why did you bother to show up anyway?
Your bracelet.
Yeah, what about it?
It's dumb. The bracelet you were wearing when I saw you, it was the same one you were wearing when I have this memory of a night after school. We were both upset about something. I can't even remember what it was. You gave me a ride home after art club, and it was dark, and we got to my place, and we parked, and we just sat there. We listened to music, and we talked about life, and it was like nothing outside of that moment mattered. I saw the bracelet, and I remembered that. And I feel like I haven't had something like that in a while, you know? I just missed it. I guess I thought, I don't know. I don't know what I thought.
I remember that. You can get out of here if you want. I'll clean up.
No, look, I'm the one who...
Please just go. I don't want to argue anymore. It's not worth it. None of this is.
All right.
Look, you'll find someone like that, you know? I will too. I think. It's just... It's not us anymore.
Yeah. I guess it's not.
Bee collects her things. On her way out, she picks up the fallen chair. She exits. End of play. All right, thank you so much. Next up, we have Andrew Hodge, Unexpected Journeys.
Hey, I'm Andrew, and this is my, I guess, short story. It's being read by. Sorry, one second. It's being read by Christopher Graham II.
Unexpected Journeys. David thought about the campaign as he quickly loaded the groceries into the trunk of his car. The sun was already setting over the HEB parking lot. He was running behind schedule and a bit exhausted. He was glad that Jackie and George liked his character's reveal. Part of him had been worried that they'd think it was lame or that it just came out of nowhere, but they liked it. He slammed the trunk closed. He felt his phone buzz. His dad had just sent him another picture of the dogs who had fallen asleep together on the couch. David replied with a quick "aw" before getting in the car. He missed his family already, even though winter break had only ended a few weeks ago. Even so, as his thoughts turned towards his earlier conversation with Sarah, the warm feelings crystallized into an overwhelming anxiety in the pit of his stomach. The idea of disappointing them, and David would be disappointing them, he was sure of it, was terrifying. Not to mention the fact that people talk in small towns. It was dark in the apartment when David got back home, and the sun had long since set. He was officially late. D&D had lasted longer than expected. He rehearsed an apology in his head as he walked to the trunk. He wasn't worried. Sarah wouldn't care. He decided to carry the groceries in all at once, his somewhat lanky frame bending under the weight of the plastic bags full of food. Luckily, they lived on the first floor, so it wasn't hard to get in. In addition to the food, David had taken the time to buy some Vaseline. He had bought a sword recently, a real-life arming sword that cost about $800. Unfortunately, Sarah's parents were going to be visiting town for a week, and they disapproved of David's tendency to buy things of little practical value just because they were cool. As a result, he had decided that he would need to store his awesome and eminently practical sword in his closet for a while, and not in the umbrella stand where it was currently. The maintenance on the weapon while Sarah's parents were in town. The Vaseline was to help prevent oxidation, since he wouldn't be able to do his usual maintenance on the weapon while Sarah's parents were in town. His phone had started buzzing like crazy. David couldn't really imagine what was causing it. Maybe it was an Amber Alert, or was his mom worried about tuition payments again? He'd do something about it when he got inside. David breathed a sigh of relief when he tried the door and it swung open. He would have had to put down some of the bags if it weren't unlocked. "Honey, I'm home," he said, like something out of an old sitcom. The house was quiet. David frowned. Sarah might have gone back to sleep, but if she had, she would have locked the door. She was careful about things like that. He set down the bags and checked his phone. They were all texts from Sarah, at least 20 of them in all caps. As he looked, another message popped up. It was then that he heard a familiar voice in the hallway. "Hey, Beanpole." The first time that David had visited the Ulysses, it was at the urging of his friends. His first year at college was coming to an end, and he still hadn't dated anyone since high school. As Jackie said at the time, "You're starting to give off sad, lonely vibes." George told him that it was a nice place to hang out, and that he went there with his boyfriend all the time. Finally, David agreed to go, if only to get you all off my back. Secretly, David was hopeful. Maybe he'd meet his Prince Charming. Weirder things had happened. At the very least, he didn't want to spend the night alone again. It was a Thursday, which meant that the first floor bar was relatively empty. David walked up the stairs and into the club on the second floor. The stairs were painted in the colors of the rainbow. David thought it was a nice touch, if slightly on the nose. The club was all neon lights and pride flags and loud music. David had been feeling nervous about coming, but he felt almost instantly at home. There were a few larger groups who had clustered in the corners, a dozen people were dancing on the floor, and the bar was well populated. But between these islands was an ocean where no one danced, and a few lonely figures nursed their drinks. He saw a few people that he had been in class with, which was cool. Mostly, the room was full of strangers. David looked at the black X's that the bouncer had sharpied onto his hands. He wondered whether that would matter much when it came to finding someone to hook up with. He decided that it probably wouldn't make a difference. Someone tapped on his arm. "Hey, Beanpole," said a voice that sounded slightly husky, as if they had been shouting over the music all night. David turned around. The owner of the voice was shorter than he was, although most people were. David was the kind of person who couldn't help looming over others, although he tried to compensate for his height by slouching. Even then, this guy was on the shorter side. What he lacked in height, he made up for in muscle. Not that he was a bodybuilder, David thought. No, it was the kind of body that was casually strong. David realized that he had been staring. "Sorry," he finally said lamely. "Were you talking to me?" The short guy smiled. "Who else? I haven't seen you here before." "Yeah, I've been meaning to come, but..." David let the sentence die. "God, you're embarrassing yourself." This guy was cute, though. His black hair reflected the neon lights of the bar. But I've seen you before." The short guy was a little bit closer now, probably just because it was so loud. "Where?" David asked. "My dreams." When he saw David's baffled reaction, he laughed. It was a sharp laugh, one that seemed to cut through the music and the chatter of the room. Kidding. But I do think I've seen you on campus before, walking around." Yeah, I walk around to classes and such." David knew he was being weird. "I'm an English major." "Cute," the guy said, smirking. "I'm a business major, but I'm graduating this summer. Already have a job lined up with a firm in Austin and everything. Real Wolf of Wall Street." Why did this guy have such a nice smile? This wasn't what he was planning for. Some stupid song was blaring over the speakers now. "Yummy, yummy, you've got that yummy, yummy." Jesus Christ, this was a mistake. The condensation from his drink coated his hand. "Hey, Beanpole," the short guy snapped under David's nose. He had to reach up a bit. His hands looked rough. There were no black X's on them. David snapped back to reality. The short guy smiled. "Look at you, already a fast learner. Do you want to dance?" "Sure." Without saying another word, the short guy took his hand and guided him to the dance floor. His hand was exactly as rough as it looked. David felt a shiver travel up his spine. On the floor, he took David's other hand. To David's relief, a new and less annoying song had started playing. They slowly got into the rhythm, back and forth as the song began to ramp up. "What's your name?" David asked, hoping that he could distract his partner from noticing that he barely knew how to dance. "Jason, but most people call me Jay," the short guy said. He had a natural grace to his movements. David had begun to feel weirdly warm. They didn't talk for a while after that. After the fast-paced song finished in a crescendo, it was followed up by something a bit slower. Jay took David's hands. David was breathing a bit heavy even as they began to slowly sway. "What about you, Beanpole? Do you have a name?" Jay asked, moving closer. "Yeah, I'm David." Jay rolled his eyes. "Not as exciting as I was hoping for, but it'll have to do." David didn't really know what to say. He felt strangely wounded hearing Jay dismiss his name like that. He wanted Jay to like his name. "So, Davy, having fun so far?" Jay continued, moving a little closer. Their chests were touching now, and Jay's hand was in David's back pocket. "Yes. I'm glad to hear that. You know," Jay said, as if the thought had just occurred to him, "we could head back to my place whenever you want." "You mean like tonight?" David asked. Jay's other hand had found its way into his other back pocket. David's brain seemed to be atomizing, falling apart like sand. His arms were draped around Jay's shoulders. "Sure, why not?" "Okay." he managed to say. Jay smiled. I knew you'd be fun. At the time, it had felt like the kind of lucky break that could only happen in romance novels. Now, as David remembered meeting Jay 2 years ago, the night took on a sort of nightmare quality. There were red flags he should have seen. There were things he should have noticed. He should have said he wasn't interested. He should have left it at one night, instead of letting it turn into 2 nights, then a month, then half the summer. He thought about how slowly and skillfully Jay had made him lose his grip on the rest of his life, how willingly he isolated himself from everything and everyone else. Because sometimes Jay gets jealous when I hang out with you guys. David remembered the first time that Jay hit him in the middle of an argument, and he threatened to call the police. David remembered how Jay had laughed, an ugly-sounding thing when they were alone in his house instead of a dance floor. Don't be an idiot. I know you like things rough. Besides, he said, his voice light with anger, I seriously doubt that you would have the guts. I seriously fucking doubt it. David remembered when he told Jay that it was through. It was during the summer over the phone. He remembered the venom that Jay spat, the anger turning into triumph when he threatened to send explicit videos of the two of them to his parents, to everyone. David remembered the way that his stomach squirmed when he begged Jay not to do that. He remembered the last 3 words that Jay ever spoke to him. No promises, Beanpole. David's heart was pounding. Maybe this was some sort of stress-induced hallucination. He heard Jay's voice again. Come in, baby. You know it's crazy, Jay said as he emerged from the hallway. I show up at your apartment, and there's this absolute fucking bitch who answers the door. It's not you at all. Jay's words were slurred. He was obviously drunk. No. David had seen him drunk. This was different. His eyes were wider, darting back and forth, and red like he had been crying. His clothes were different than David remembered. More professional, but ruffled, as if he had been exercising in his office clothes. There was a small pocket knife in his hand, which hung loosely at his side. David's veins turned to ice when he saw the blood on the tip of the knife, dripping onto the stone kitchen floor. He felt himself getting smaller and smaller until he felt as if he was moments away from simply vanishing. You know, Jay continued, she tried to tell me I couldn't come in, even when I told her that you and I used to fucking, boink. He laughed. David's heart was beating in a frantic tattoo in his chest. What did you do? He asked, noticing the sword in the umbrella stand in the corner of his eye. He grabbed it and held it in front of him with both hands. Jay stared, no longer laughing. Jesus Christ, David, he spat out. You're such a fucking wimp. What kind of pussy buys a fucking sword? Answer me, David said, trying and failing to sound like he had any control over the situation. I didn't do anything. I didn't do a single fucking thing to you. Jay was screaming now. You bitch! You think you're something special, huh? That you're better than me? Now David was shouting. What did you do to Sarah? He yelled, hands shaking. Jay shook his head as if he was disappointed in David. He pointed back to the hallway with a knife, flinging a bit of blood across the wall. David felt sick. I left a shirt at your place. I just wanted my shirt back. But I went into your room and it's not there. Where's my fucking shirt, bro? He shouted that last word as if he was trying to hurt David with it. David shook his head. I threw it away a long time ago, Jay. Please, where's Sarah? She's fine, said Jay. She tried to keep me out. I don't... For a second, he seemed confused. I don't know where she is, Beanpole. I know she's locked in one of the rooms. She won't let me in. Don't call me that, David said, his hands shaking more. He felt strangely removed from the situation. What? Don't call me Beanpole. Beanpole. Stop it. Bean fucking pole. Seriously, stop. I can call you whatever I fucking want. Jay was walking towards David now, staggering slightly. David stepped back, sword still held in front of him. He was panicking. He was panicking, and soon he was going to die. He remembered something he had said to Sarah when he came out to her. My parents are going to find out that I'm bi over my dead body. It was funny at the time. Now David felt sick. He was supposed to be the one that decided when they knew. He was never going to get a chance to tell them. Jay kept talking. Do you understand? He waited, but David said nothing, so he continued. Do you understand? Answer me when I ask you a fucking question, you piece of shit! Jay lunged forward at that point, the knife pointed at David's stomach. Sarah had to fill in David on what had happened next, because when he racked his memory for those specific moments, they were a jumbled mess. Apparently, she had left the bathroom just in time to see David step to the side and bring the sword down on Jay's wrist, neatly cutting it off. She talked for several minutes about how there was surprisingly little blood, until David asked her to maybe stop dwelling on it. They mostly talked about it in a room after both of them had given their statements, and the ambulance and the police had all left. David learned a lot while talking to the cops with Sarah. For example, he found out that it was actually possible to reattach severed hands within a certain time frame, so Jay would most likely regain complete use of his right hand. Eventually. He also learned that Texas was a stand-your-ground state, which meant that he was probably not in trouble for behanding someone. He was informed that he would need to lawyer up at some point soon. Finally, he also learned that Sarah knew how to make a tourniquet and that, in general, she was much calmer in crisis situations than he was. She had called the police immediately after locking herself in the bathroom, and they arrived less than a minute after David handled the situation. Now they were sitting on the bed together. Sarah held David's hands in hers. Her arm was bandaged where Jay had cut her, but she insisted that, besides that, she was okay. He was still shaking a little, but he had mostly stopped crying. He thought about those minutes before the ambulance had arrived. Jay sitting on the bench, the end of his arm wrapped up, his missing hand covered with ice in the coolers Sarah brought with her on hiking trips, his other hand handcuffed to a belt loop. He was crying, looking more broken than David had ever seen someone look before. David realized that he had never heard Jay talk about other people in his life when they had been together. In an instant, the fear that David had felt vanished, replaced by pity. Are you okay? Sarah asked, staring at him. David returned to the present. Yeah. I was just thinking. I need to call my parents. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Christopher. All right, up next, we are finally going to end with another play from David.
Hello, my name is David Rich, if you didn't see me at the beginning. And this next play is called Complacency. It is, it has Hannah Detrick as Hannah?
Hi, I'm Hannah. I play Maggie.
And Ishelle? You're muted.
Hi, my name is Ishelle Cuellar, and I'm playing Margaret.
Alrighty. So without further ado, Complacency, written by David Rich. Lights up on a gorgeous, sunlit living room with large windows. It is an extremely colorful room, with greenery everywhere. Oranges sit on a coffee table beside a mug of coffee. Maggie lays down staring up at the ceiling. She is wearing a simple nightgown, and with the light, she is a painting. She grabs an orange off of the table and begins to peel it. A hazy darkness fills the room as Margaret enters through an ever-present door.
Up. Hold on.
Up.
Ah, the wiry bits keep sticking underneath my fingernails.
That's a part of peeling an orange.
It's frustrating.
Oranges aren't the most accommodating of fruits.
Ah, a bit of seed.
Careful, or you'll grow an orange tree in your stomach. What?
I'm not a child.
With this tantrum, I'd forgotten.
It's not a tantrum. I just want to lounge.
It's 9 o'clock.
Okay.
It is Sunday, you know. You aren't dressed.
No.
So, what do you plan to do?
What can I do?
You're gonna sit back down.
Margaret gets up and heads to the window.
Maybe I'll give it to the birds.
Birds don't eat oranges.
Birds eat anything they find.
They'll eat anything they are provided.
And here I'll be a provider.
Meritorious.
Thank you.
She tosses the orange to the birds and watches as they fly away.
You want to fly?
Oh?
Well, do you?
Why should I want to?
What with your yearning and bickering, I'd assume you'd be jumping at the prospect.
Sure. I guess I would like to fly.
Would you fly away from me?
Why can't I fly? Or anything else, really? Who decided the buck stops with dirt?
I suppose he did.
I want to paint.
You're late.
It's a beautiful day.
A beautiful day to go outside. Take a walk in our Sunday best.
Is it a crime to paint the sunrise?
Does this not happen every morning? The sun rising and glinting against the water of the lake?
Making a perfect gradient from red to blue? It's so unique. It needs to be painted.
Unique. Just like the trees and birds.
Just because they're abundant doesn't mean they aren't individual. The water will never shine exactly the same way twice.
And yet it is always glinting.
And plants and birds all die and grow, and people too. So am I insane to think it's worthwhile to capture this one fleeting moment of beauty on a Sunday morning?
So it's the Sunday that's unique?
Jesus Christ, how would you know if you keep your head forever down? Maybe the lake is more beautiful on Sundays because no one is around to see it. When did I forget about the trees and the birds?
You didn't forget. You're focusing on the things that matter. You came to your senses.
So upon coming to my senses, I stopped using them?
You started using them wisely.
I shouldn't have to ration my connection to the world.
So, take off your shoes.
I mean, we should just... Couldn't we do this more often?
You'd get a sunburn. Now, get off the floor.
Do your arms ever get tired from shooting me down?
You have to protect yourself, dear. If you're always connected to the earth, you just start jumping to conclusions.
What conclusion could I make about the beauty of the world around me that might injure me?
Nature is filled with briar and thorns.
And so I must then frolic in them?
That would be the next conclusion with your behavior.
I can appreciate the sharp edges of a thorn bush without jumping into one.
Not every obstacle is as sharp as a bush or as obvious as a cliff. You're bound to misstep.
So what?
Keep your voice down.
Oh, heaven forbid I scare the neighbors. They might inconvenience me for a few minutes of my day.
Minutes that you don't have. Now get your clothes on.
She runs out to the window.
I can't leave now. I have questions to be answered.
Maggie.
Why doesn't an orange tree grow in my stomach?
What?
When I eat an orange. Why does the tree grow in the dirt but not in my stomach? It needs light, right?
Right.
To live, and good soil, I'd suppose.
When you eat the seed, it dies.
Why? The birds, why can they fly? Why are they not stuck here like the rest of us? Because they can and so they should, no?
I suppose.
And one day they'll fly off and never return. There will be new little voices in the garden, and the old birds will find a new home. And you never see a bird with a tree sticking out its mouth, but they eat mostly seeds.
Well, they deposit them.
So do we. But ours never reach good soil.
It's past 9.
We're so close to nature. Can you look outside for a second at that
My
lake?
dear, you're late.
For what? Why must I be herded to a gathering on a Sunday morning when I should be painting?
It's a greater appreciation, one beyond the natural.
Why worry about beyond the natural when all we know is earth and dirt and oranges? We celebrate the sacrifice of a magic child
Who died for each of us and rose again.
so we celebrate the ghostly remains.
We celebrate what we believe to be the reason we exist.
Is it not enough to be alive?
We celebrate because we trust.
Hope,
Hope, faith, trust that we have purpose on this earth.
designated by the everlasting, written on a file in a filing cabinet.
Somewhere in the world, there's a tomb where.
Somewhere in the world, there is a patch of dirt where underneath lay Jesus himself. Get over it!
And if there is, so be it. I have my faith, and it will follow me to the ground or heaven.
You're so deceitful to yourself, it's unbearable.
Maybe I am considering what you've deemed unconsiderable.
If I am to believe in empty tombs and men in the clouds, I do it on my own terms, not something invented by some old men.
You may do that. But I trust you'll find where it is you belong. Look to your past. Look to your family.
I'll look to my future, which you clearly never think about. I need time.
It can take time. Sometimes you must lose something to understand why it was there.
Maybe. Or maybe it's to understand everything else.
And when you're an old hag, you might find that hope is as essential as the air we breathe.
You're not an old hag.
Time will tell. I'm running late. I'll let you have your rediscovery.
I might have some sort of rediscovery, sure.
Margaret heads out the door, leaving it wide open.
Or maybe as the birds at last all fly away and my garden is empty, I'll get lost in my senses and fade into darkness like everything else seems to do.
The room is getting brighter.
For now, I am content.
She grabs another orange. Margaret is gone. She wanders to the door and shuts it. Afterwards, she lays down. She is like a painting once again. Lights down, blackout, end of play. Thank you very much. This was Complacency, and this has been Apples and Oranges. If everybody could bring their cameras up, we are going to have a talkback session. I suppose we can start with the first one and just go in order from there. So going back to the first show, Green and Pillared, for a reminder, it's the one about the apples and the getting and the not knowing where you're supposed to be, you know? So, let's see. Connor?
Yeah. Do you want me to just start reading off some questions?
Sure. And if you have any other general questions that you think might be relevant.
All right. So I don't think we got any questions in the chat for the first reading. But I'd feel comfortable asking you, what gave you the idea for this short play?
Right. So this the Green and Pillared started literally just by me writing the title green and pillared. And I was like, what does that mean? And so I wrote something that wasn't good. That just said a bunch of things. It just said a bunch of words. I think each line was good on its own, but it had made no sense together. And then I slowly edited it until it became something that meant something to me. And so I think the meaning found me more than I found the meaning of Green and Pillared. Yeah.
And so I guess my next question is, what do you think the characters themselves in this story draw from?
I would love it if my cast members could answer this with their own thoughts, but I would say that that this is definitely an internal struggle within one person's mind, and I think the struggle draws from just the fact that you'll do anything. Like you go so far out of your way to avoid the things that you don't want to do, so far that you get uncomfortable with those things, you know. Characters, green, pillared. Anything to say on that?
Yeah, I that's the sense I got from it. I know that Britton and I had similar viewpoints on the entire thing, although I know we differed on one point. I can't quite remember what it was, but I think it was on what the apples represented. But I really got the sense, like you said, that this is sort of taking place in this one character's mind, if anything else, and that green is just another part of him. That's how I saw it as. This was him sort of trying to get away from all the responsibilities that he's taken under and apparently been doing, as he said, for years. So this was him sort of trying to get away and coming to terms with the fact that he chose to be this way, and he has a responsibility to handle. But yeah, I don't know if you want to say anything on that, Britton.
As far as what the characters draw from, I think green is especially reminiscent of like the little angel and devil on your shoulders, where again, he's like, is that my job to help you? I'm not sure if it is. I'm just here to bounce different thoughts between you and like, hey, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? Because as green is some figment or some part of pillared, he doesn't really exist. He just exists. It's that voice in your head that's like, hey, so you've taken these apples and you've run away, but what about the people you care for? Like, I know that you are exhausted, or that you no longer want to do this, or that you think this is too much of a burden, but what about others? It's just that little voice in your head is what I think green is derived from.
Yeah, just like thinking back, I like the way I kind of interpreted it myself was that green kind of represents like the inner intrusive thoughts of things like anxiety, or you know, the things that remind you of what you need to do when you don't want to do them, and make you feel bad about avoiding them, even though potentially you might need to avoid them, or you know, if you don't need to avoid them, they're just constantly at you, like making you feel bad.
Yeah. Seen Selena, I think, I don't know how to say that, but he says, I like the idea that the devil isn't necessarily bad, just opposing viewpoints. And I didn't think about green as heaven and hell together as one neutral character, but it fits. Any questions from other people in here that have thoughts, had opinions on it? Just open your mic and say words if you want to.
I've actually, I've seen this before, kind of when you were still working on it, and I remember really enjoying listening to it all that time ago, and having two actors really like kind of go at it. It's always been really fun for me to listen to this, so it was a real pleasure to hear it again.
Thank you. Was this you working something out through writing? Probably. I feel like my green is the play itself, and I'm pillared. You know, I'm writing all of this down, and it's yelling at me through the page. You know, so probably, yeah. Cool. We don't have any other questions.
I guess not. We can move on
yeah.
to the next, which was. Sorry,
that would be
I'm pulling up the
Rodeo.
list again. Yeah, Rodeo. So I guess the first question we can approach here is where did you get the idea for Rodeo?
So I worked as a Girl Scout camp counselor 2 years back. And during the summer we went to a rodeo, and it was the first rodeo I'd been to. And a lot of the things that happened in this short story were things that like had actually happened to me. A lot of it was fiction as well, just to make it like more compelling. But a lot of it was based on just one summer that I had. It's the Marble Falls Rodeo. If anyone has ever been, that is the specific rodeo it is.
Okay, sounds good. Let me pull up some more questions because I believe we got some. So the setting there is based off of the Marble Falls Rodeo.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think yeah. The only question we had in the chat was about the setting.
Part of the setting was also just like Girl Scout camp counselors. One of the things that happens there is that's why everyone had like really weird names. Is it's a thing in Girl Scout tradition that as a camp counselor you just pick like a random noun to be your nickname for the summer. So a lot of people I don't even know their actual names. Like I only knew them by something silly. So that's why everyone sounds like that. And there's just a high amount of gay people who work at Girl Scout camps. So.
Cool.
Any questions
that's interesting.
From people in Zoom? Anybody here have thoughts? Ishelle reading it maybe?
I guess could you just talk about some of the general themes that you thought it was important to get across in this? If that makes sense. It's kind of vague. But...
So this went through several drafts, and like slowly I was trying to pull out these themes more so in it. Mostly it's because I tried to really show it at the end of it, but like it's about like this yearning for like love and sort of especially like sort of gay love, and like not exactly getting it, but still being like happy with other people having it and still like enjoying friendship and like what you have as well. But still like it's supposed to be like a very quiet story about like yearning and just like community.
Yeah, I liked the vibes. The vibes were good. Very, very well written.
Thank you.
Yeah, I like that we got to see just a little bit about each character there. It definitely felt like everyone knew each other, and there were character traits very well conveyed through all of them.
I'm also very into like how different me and Hodge's stories about gay people were. Just think it was fun.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess could you talk a little bit about kind of forming all these different characters that there's kind of because there's like quite a few of them. How did you kind of develop them, differentiate them?
A lot of them were based upon like actual people that I knew. I changed a lot of it. The character of Artemis, I definitely wanted to be sort of like this kind of cooler character, like a little bit more aloof, but like sort of like this to like sort of create that romantic tension with. Um, Skipper is supposed to be more just like the friend of the group, and then Rabbit and Blue were. I purposely did not give them a ton of dialogue because they're supposed to be more of like an ideal. They're more of something being like watched, and they're less a part of like the in group in this story. Thank you for the question. That was a good one.
Any more questions from the Zoomcast? Okay, I guess we'll move on to the next play by Jamie. Jamie, what gave you the inspiration for this?
It kind of just came out of just like a tiny thing. I think I just went and hung out with with a couple friends that I hadn't really hung out with before. And I don't know. I just remember walking away and being like, that went really well. What if it had gone very, very wrong? And then my brain just kind of went into 100 different places and then landed on, what if these two people do one of those kind of awkward, like, oh, we should get lunch sometime, and then they actually do it, but they hate each other, and it just devolves into like chaos and like shouting horrible things to each other. So that was like what the idea was. It kind of I don't know, I wrote the first draft and it was nothing like what I had thought about. And then I wrote a couple more and they came like closer to what I had envisioned, but not quite there. But I'm still pretty satisfied with it. I think I don't know. I like what it turned into, even though it's not what I kind of what I pictured.
I think it definitely conveyed at least what you were the feeling that you were trying to convey. I mean, the entire time I was spectating, I was completely like flooded over with like bystander anxiety.
Yeah, that actually is pretty much what I was going for.
Yeah, I thought that was good. Someone said this is the situational equivalent of biting into a ghost pepper. Lots of I can relate, lots of oofs. Looking for some more. Someone said the waiter was probably about to come out and then heard two people arguing.
Yeah, I don't know what they were doing. I figured it was just a crappy place.
Yeah.
And I wanted that to add tension to, because he's the one who picked it. So Ashley is annoyed with that also.
Yeah. Speaking of the two characters, how did you decide on the two characters and like what are the, I don't know, how characters? That's my question.
I kind of wanted them to be, I don't know. I just kind of wanted them to be sort of opposite ends of whatever, I guess, like style. I wanted Ashley to be kind of like a college party girl, and B to be kind of like art student-esque. I guess, I mean, I haven't thought about whether that was exactly what they were like in high school or if they just like somehow got along better then. But I kind of just wanted them to be, people who probably would not be interacting if it weren't for, this obligation that they felt they kind of had.
Yeah. How about actors for those characters? How do you feel about the characters? Let's go B first.
Oh no. I was about to say do it in alphabetical order, but yeah, I sort of thought about that. I was wondering I was trying to imagine what their relationship was like in high school, because you certainly change a lot when you get to college.
Mm.
I also wanted to say, not that this was the question, but Jamie. I think that there's something very interesting about the script, that there is sort of this like implied ticking clock. Like there isn't an official one, but both like definitely Ashley and probably a little bit B too, is there's like a, all right, let's get through this. Like it's like bring the waiter out. Let's get
Right.
emotions, which creates a really interesting tension between them, which you totally exploit in the best ways and like let it bubble over. So that I just really liked that. I thought that was cool.
Thanks.
Ainsley, Ashley.
Yeah, I kind of got like, for me, I thought they grew up in a very small town. So like they were kind of like forced to be friends pretty much throughout high school. And then once they graduated and they can go off to college, they're like, well, now I can do whatever I want, be who I want to be. And then they meet up and they're like, oh, this is why I want to do my own thing. This is why I don't like them anymore.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that kind of just happens sometimes.
I also love the call out to like my friends and I call them like driveway talks. It's when you like sit in the car with your friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's such a high school thing. Because like what are you gonna do? Your one friend has a car, like let's just sit here and listen to music.
Yeah.
That was right on the money.
Yeah, there's a lot of.
It was a very specific experience that I wanted to put into something.
Yeah, there's a lot of like small relatable details in there. Like I think most of us have had similar like situations or encounters, especially transitioning from smaller high school age setting with home friends and how things change going to college. I like the relatability. Someone said those people that wouldn't have been friends if they met at any other time.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
And then we had a question about casting choices. I don't know if that's directed at everyone or just this particular play.
Yeah, I think casting. I tried to reach out to people who I knew would be strong for the roles that we had. Obviously, getting 12 people together within a week is a feat within itself, and so. But I think we just got a bunch of strong actors here, so we can throw rocks at them and they'll do fine, you know.
Please don't.
I think they deserve nicer than rocks.
But we could, and they would still be acting perfectly fine.
All right. Any questions from the rest of the Zoom cast about this production?
Where was the waiter that entire time?
I don't know. It probably was just I don't know. I feel like it seems like one of those places that's like on its last leg, and maybe they've got one guy on staff that day and he's maybe just out of it or like doesn't care anymore, so he's just not doing anything. He came out and gave him the drinks and then went and fucked off. Yeah, I don't know. Again, I wanted to emphasize the kind of shittiness of the place because that was one of the points of tension that I wanted to create. So I mean, I know that feeling of you pick a place for you and a friend to go, and it's kind of a reflection of you, it feels like.
Yeah. Very, very well done. Round of applause for Jamie, but also round of applause for Rowan, because we didn't do that for Rowan. So there you go.
David, you get no applause.
We'll give David a round of applause at the end.
Right.
All right, let's move on to Unexpected Journeys. Andrew, what gave you the inspiration for this?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Just real quick, I want to apologize. I'm at home for the weekend. My technology is being a little bit finicky, so sorry about the camera being off. But as far as like inspiration for this, it was really just the place that I was in, kind of at that period of time when I was writing it. A lot of really disparate kind of things falling together, uh, where I kind of wanted to figure out if I could synthesize something out of it. Especially like the idea of honesty in relationships, and of course, even more so being honest with yourself. In addition to that, I also was really excited about the idea of um, trying to combine this sort of um, fantastical elements with a real world setting. And the reason why I wanted to do that is because I was writing this for a class, and the professor had explicitly told us we were not allowed to write anything genre fiction. It had to be realistic literary fiction. And I immediately began thinking about ways I could get around that. And so that's basically where most of it came from.
I love the use of fantasy tropes in a normal setting. I think the that kind of heightened, almost magical aspects of it, that adds a lot. I like to do that with my own experiments with writing in video games and stuff.
Yeah, and a lot. To be perfectly honest, I ended up having to cut the original story quite a bit, which was it ended up me having to cut out some parts that kind of heightened that a lot. But I was still really happy with how the final product turned out, and I'm really happy with also Christopher's rendition of it. I thought it was excellent.
So our hold on, I keep losing my place in the chat. We had a lot of comments, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So the first question is, what inspired the D&D hobby as a metaphor?
Well, I've been on a real D&D kick lately, and that's been going on for a while. I've recently finished my first ever campaign with a group of friends of mine, and we've been playing for over a year now, and it was a really emotionally fulfilling, enjoyable experience. I honestly can't recommend it enough as a hobby that not only allows you to have a lot of fun with your friends, but also explore aspects of yourself and try and get out of your shell a little bit. And I thought that the idea of kind of secrets, like it's a big thing in Dungeons and Dragons, like secret aspects of your character that other members of your party might not know about necessarily at the beginning. The idea of basically it's a very good device for trying to make a compelling character. And so I recognized at some point, like, hey, you know what, that's kind of a lot like writing an interesting character in regular fiction. I wanted to see if I could find a way to put that together. And of course, like I said, I was also trying to find any excuse possible to mention as many kind of fantasy tropes during the writing of it.
Awesome. Yeah, that's definitely a good parallel between personal experiences with games and making characters, and also making characters in a written story. So that's cool. The next question is, have you heard of or read In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado?
I have not actually, which is a shame because I think personally, I know a lot of people say don't judge a book by its cover, but I think a good title can tell you a lot about a book, and that sounds certainly really interesting. In the Dream House, is that right?
Correct.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and write that down so I can check it out later, because it sounds like a really interesting concept.
Yeah, lots of shocks, lots of enjoying the hand puns. I almost missed that pun.
To be perfectly honest, some of them weren't intentional. I was literally listening. I was listening to it, and I was like, wait a second. That wasn't on purpose, but I sure hope someone else noticed it. So that's I'm glad someone else picked up on it because I certainly hadn't.
I like to think that unintended puns exist because your subconscious wants it to happen. Like something in the way that our brains process speech. We're just like, we need to connect this word with this word because it's satisfying.
Oh, absolutely. And of course, at my very core, I'm an individual that loves good puns. So it makes a lot of sense that would come out in my writing, even if I tried to suppress it.
Yeah. Well, awesome. That was good. I'm looking forward to reading the full thing without the cuts.
Yeah, absolutely. It's still, to be perfectly honest, a work in progress as far as I'm concerned. And honestly, taking the time to cut about 70% of it led me to realize that there were some parts of it that I wanted to change. So, in a weird way, I'm thinking that maybe I need to start putting sudden deadlines on my work in the future so I can begin, arbitrarily decimating it. Maybe it'll do my regular work some good.
Relatable.
Yeah, there are also some comments that are coming up at the end. Says, I know that when I was closeted and trying to date someone, I definitely disguised dates as D&D sessions.
Wow, yeah, that's actually a really good idea. I might need to write that one down.
We have, this is a memoir on lesbian abusive relationships. It gives a lot of perspective on how it's really quite a different roller coaster while still being the same beast.
Let's talk about the story that she recommended before, yeah?
Oh, I thought that was... I was like, I didn't think so, but I'm gonna read the comment.
I can see how that can relate to Andrew's story.
Yeah, and I definitely I appreciate all book suggestions, but that one especially, and that's because abusive relationships are something that I'm lucky enough that I've never necessarily had to deal with, at least nothing close to this. And I wanted to make sure that I wrote it in a way that I felt was respectful of not only the actual experiences of people who have been in those situations, but also kind of the unique experiences of being in an abusive relationship that isn't just like two straight people and what those dynamics would look like. And so if I get the opportunity, I'm definitely going to sit down and take a look at this and see if there's something from it that I can kind of pick up on.
Do we have any questions from the cast? Okay. Well, thank you, Andrew. I think that was a very powerful story that had a lot of very, very unexpected twists. So well done. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. And of course, thank you, just the person who's reading my book, and then also the person who recommended a book.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the last reading, which was David's play Complacency. First of all, I love that your first play was about apples and your last play had very much to do with oranges. I think that was fitting, and I love that you structured the night with those two like sandwiching the whole event.
What? I didn't title this selfishly. No. This, by the way, before we get started, this is based off of a poem by Philip Larkin called Sunday Morning. So that's kind of where I got the whole concept from.
Okay. So I guess because it's based on a poem, you didn't necessarily draw this from an actual personal experience, but were there any like personal experiences that contributed?
Yeah. Yes. Definitely. This was a very relatable poem, and I tried to turn it into kind of a, because the poem is really just seems like an argument with herself, like no one else is in the room, but obviously for a play, I didn't want to write a one person play. It just didn't feel right. And I I think that there are about three people that I argue my views on organized religion with: myself, my mother, and the larger world. And I tried to create a character that represented all of those. And so, to the person who asked which character was me, it's the one that's whining. It's the one that's yelling. So yeah, no, it's definitely Maggie. It's definitely the younger character. Uh, I wanted to capture just like the concept like of just how being wrapped up in the concepts of like religious feelings gets you to a point where you can't appreciate the real world. At least for me, I was so blinded and narrowed by worrying all of the time about like things and what's going to happen and will I make it to church or whatever. And this poem, and therefore the play that I wrote based off of it, really really resonates with me on a deep level. And the play is definitely a little bit removed from the poem itself, but yeah, that's my spiel, I guess.
I think that's definitely a relatable topic for, especially for young people that grow up in a very like religious family. And even if we don't maybe agree with everything, there's a lot to be gained from the conversation, and the concept of blind following, because there's a lot to life.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of aspects to consider.
It's especially frustrating how much people in like organized like churches and things just don't want you to ask questions. They don't want that. They don't want to let you do that. I would like to open this up to Hannah and Michelle to see your thoughts on your characters and the because this is a big topic, I think, that this is trying to cover in 10 minutes. So
Yeah. So I mean, David and I have been friends since freshman year. So he's seen me coming into college, having a religious background, and and I think that's kind of why he contacted me about this. Although I mean, my religious experience has its ups and downs. So I really relate to Maggie's character, especially within like the last 2 years. I don't know. I really appreciated having this kind of story be told. But I do have a question for you, David. So obviously you had this poem and then you had your experiences and you kind of meshed them together. But then there's this sort of Renaissance painting aspect to it. And I wanted to know why. Is it just the fact that most Renaissance paintings are lounging, or like what was that for you?
I definitely think that just the concept of it being a painting is kind of, I don't know, especially a Renaissance painting. There's this kind of guise of perfection, like it's always pretending to be the most perfect thing ever. And then I kind of wanted to have it go from you being this gorgeous painting on a backdrop of whatever, and then you immediately get up and you just get orange peel stuck under your fingernails and you're like, because you're real, you're a human, you don't you can't be a Renaissance painting forever, you know? You just have those moments.
I love that.
Someone even said Hannah's background looks like a painting.
We spent some time finagling that, angling it and everything.
And as for Margaret, this role was very interesting. I'm not particularly religious, nor do I come from a religious background, so this was a little interesting. I do have like I have been baptized before. I come from like Catholic grandparents, so I do have some sort of knowledge. I definitely had different views on religion in high school than I do now. I think now that I'm older, now that I've experienced a little bit more, I feel like I can understand why people do have religion and why they do use it. I feel like it can be very helpful in terms of like your mindset, stuff like that. But I mean, as for me, that's just not something I've dabbled in. But I do think this character does have a lot of I don't know. I know David wrote it a certain way with the names Maggie and Margaret, like intentionally, very like similarly. And so I did kind of feel that. I know David alluded to the idea that Margaret could be like an older version of Maggie, or maybe like a future, yeah, or something like that. Maybe like Maggie's perception of like another side of her. So I definitely felt like putting that somewhere in like the subtext of like the things I said or the dialogue. But yeah, this was definitely very fun and interesting to play someone who's completely different from me as a person.
Cool. Thank you.
I would like to say I kind of like the idea of it being like two sides of yourself. I mean the idea of it being like a family member is also very powerful, but the two sides of yourself kind of reminds me of, you know, just like younger late high school or freshman year of college me, just trying to, you know, deal with the concept, because when you're active in organized religion for a long time, you build up this mindset of, oh, there are things that you shouldn't do, or there are things that are bad for you and you should avoid them, solely just because it affects, you know, your ability to be good at your faith, or your you know, your chances later in life, or afterlife, and dealing with the ideas of, oh, but I just want to be myself, I just want to enjoy the world that I'm in, versus, you know, the nagging responsibility feeling. So I think that's definitely very relatable.
This was definitely a can of worms I opened. So, any other comments, thoughts from people?
I mean, going off the can of worms thing, I feel like this is a conversation that not a lot of people have because they don't want to be the one who starts it. So I'm wondering, kind of, did you feel it was important to put this out there? I guess is what my question was.
Yes, I did. Because I think that one of the number one issues that I have with arguments of belief is the not listening to each other part. And one thing I really wanted to emphasize in this play is that they are listening to each other, and they're asking each other questions based off of the things the other person said, which I don't know if you've ever had an argument about religion, but that doesn't happen. That's not how those arguments work. People are saying things at each other. But I wanted this to be a conversation where they're actually trying to understand each other and kind of come to this sort of acceptance of like, you've just got to live your life and figure it out, because it's such a big thing to decide on, and one person is not going to put that on you. That's something you've got to do for yourself, you know. And so it really is, it's a conversation that I wish more people would have in the way it happened, you know, where you actually say words to each other that the other person then takes, processes, and says words back to you, you know?
David, I had a question about these characters' ages. I don't think it was mentioned in the script with their age. And certainly for me, it came across that like Maggie was younger and Margaret was older. I
Yeah.
wonder, did that come from the rehearsal process? Did you try to write that into the script, or is that something that you and the actors discovered?
So that is written into the script. I skipped over it just because reading, I don't know. But Maggie is 20 something, and Margaret is like 50, 60, like in that range. Definitely like uh everyone's kind of conception of a generally religious person who's kind of not going to stop being that way, you know? Just because I feel like there's just an assumption that once you hit like 55, you can't change your opinions on things, you know? So
Yeah, somebody in the chat said it's pretty like it's clear in the script, which I thought so as well.
yeah.
I did want to say that I mean I felt that like ideas wise, like I personally would align more with Maggie, but there was something very relatable about Margaret's character in terms of like the fear of asking questions and like the necessity to have like something stable and like to not have everything so up in the air. And so I thought that was really beautiful for people to be able to relate to people on the other side.
Yeah, because I think that so many people just they ask like specific questions of like how can you believe XYZ, and it's like no, it's about the larger like whole concept, you know? People are always like, well, you can't build a boat that's this long. It'll break in half, you know? Like Bill Nye, uh, just on that one like debate thing, they were arguing these tiny little things, and it's like, no, this is a huge, like galaxy-wide problem. You can't argue like feet, you know? Feet and inches.
Yeah, I think a lot of people focus very, very much on the factuality or practicality of religion when having this discussion. So I think it's good that this play discusses more minute things about nature and interests, right? And while also dealing with the stability thing, because I think that's a big draw for religion is just having answers on how to do things, how to behave. So that confusion that comes from not understanding why people don't want stability is definitely relatable.
Yeah, it's interesting. Both characters in some ways want answers. It's like the way that they get to those answers are very different, and it's like frustrating to them that they have the same desire and yet are doing it two different ways.
Um, so if there are any more questions, speak now, forever hold your peace.
If no one else has a question, I do.
Okay.
I have a question about the orange and what that represents in this story. I mean, I definitely saw some things about just like, questioning reality and nature and why we do things and why things happen, but I didn't see much more beyond that.
So I really liked the metaphor of the orange because so in the poem it literally just says like there's a bowl of oranges, and it doesn't say anything more about it. That's not an important part of the poem, I don't think. Just kind of set the tone. But I really like it because I don't know about you, but like oranges, the concept of oranges is just so neat and tidy, you know? You you crack open the orange and you take out the slice, right? But every time you peel an orange, there are so many things that just inconvenience you about it, you know? And I think it just goes back into like the Renaissance painting thing of just there's a reality to it that's real. It's there. It grew on a tree and has seeds so that it can plant more trees for oranges. And it's got this sinews stuff because the fruit is just it's there. It exists, you know? I don't know. And it's like I feel like people eat oranges expecting them to be like candy or like some other manufactured thing. And that's why you've got like cuties now, which are genetically modified to be the most convenient orange possible.
They still get all over your fingers, though.
True. It's like you can't get away from the fact that nature is where everything comes from.
There's a lot of messy complexity to everything. I think you could apply that to both sides of this argument too. There's complexity to life, but there's also complexity to religion and why people follow it.
Yeah, you can say that again. So
someone said the Orange Strings is all the compilations in talking about this. Oh, complications.
Complications, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely, when you started talking about the strands and the messiness of oranges, I saw that. Just because there's a lot of minute details you have to consider in arguments like this too.
Yeah, and they keep getting stuck under your fingernails where you can't ignore them.
Mm-hmm.
Metaphor. We beat you over the head with it. But yeah. So if there are no other questions, I think we can say thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming. This has been Apples and Oranges, and we are glad you came. I'm impressed that 18 people stayed till the end of the talk back. Like, how?
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Also, thank you for all the comments. It was slow at first, but we got a lot of comments by the end. So thank you so much for being active.
Yeah. And thank you for the wonderful actors, the wonderful writers. You go ahead.
And thank you for dealing with technical difficulties as we worked out a new format for doing readings. We were playing around a lot with Windows and how to do text on screen. So thank you for sitting through that.
I think if nothing else, it let people kind of follow along with the vague bubble of the word, if not reading the word itself. But yeah, thank you so much for stopping by. I probably want to sleep now. I think.
Valid. Yeah. All right. I guess that's it. Thanks, everyone.